Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be a little different. I guess we could call it a truck talk, to steal a phrase from one of my friends on the channel, Wyatt. But we're going to go ahead and have just a fun little cartridge discussion while I drive to the dump for work, dropping off a mattress. A really good cartridge that is basically dead. You know, it's the SAUM. So the SAUM, as I said, is really cool. It came out in the craze of short action cartridges from the Winchesters and the Remingtons. When you think of a SAUM, it's really just a little bit narrow, a little bit shorter version of a 7WSM. So case capacity is sitting around 72 to 73 grains of water case capacity, which puts it almost identical with the 280 Ackley Improved and about 6 grains short of the 7WSM. And it was introduced in 2002. So I believe at least the original WSM, the 300, came out before it. But what makes the SAUM really good is the same kind of thing with the WSMs. Is it's a really efficient, really efficient. It also, you know, in a good gun is very accurate. Okay, so that's kind of the highlights of why you get these. Is they're basically a more inherently accurate cartridge because they're short and fat. Well, let's talk a little bit about velocities. Okay, so you know, if we loaded this up with a 145 grain Barnes LRX, you're going to top out with a 24-inch barrel, low 3,100 feet per second using the right powders, okay? If you bump it up to a Magnum powder, you could squeeze a little bit more out of it, maybe mid 3,100 to maybe 3,200. Now, interesting, Barnes just released some SAUM ammo, so that's pretty sweet. And I checked, they're doing 3,125 feet per second with the 145 LRX. So that's pretty up there. You know, that's not a mild load for the SAUM in a 24-inch barrel. How about when we bump it up to like a 160 grain? I'll say this, with a SAMI spec 7SAUM, let's say you have an older Remington rifle, early 2000s, bless your heart, I feel like the 160 grains probably its sweet spot. Okay, with the right powders, what I was thinking of using is like Vitavori N560. You possibly could use H4831SC. The velocities you're going to get are really good. Okay, you're right over 3,000 feet per second. Okay, so if you remember, that competes extremely well with a 7PRC factory ammo. It's usually doing, if it gets box velocities, 3,000 with a 160 grain. While we're on the topic of powders, what's ideal? We'll just go through this really fast, okay? With the lighter bullets, you're looking at H4350 and N160, even lighter, maybe N550, N555 will be good. For the heavier bullets, you're going to want to go with something like H4831SC or N560. All right, what I want to talk about next is the potential of the SAUM when it is in the correct, when it's not restricted to its SAMI spec, okay? SAMI spec, you're loaded to 2.850. You're seating the bullets into the case quite a bit. You have a slower twist rate. It's not ideal. So what happens if you put like a 1 in 8 twist? You know, you're seating the bullets out to like 3 inches or a little less. This thing is so good for how small the case is. So I did some calculations in GRT just with a 24-inch barrel and using N560 with the 175 grain ELDX. We're topping out a little over 2,900 feet per second. So that's really good. When you think about it, this case is technically a little smaller than a 280 Ackley Improved, and you're getting 2,900 with a 175. Just really great performance. So realistically, where you're going to find your accuracy, usually probably not in the top. So anywhere 2800, 2850, which is still great. You know, it's matching Hornady 7 PRC velocities. So the question is, what happened to this awesome, short, efficient little 7mm? How did it die? Why is it basically, you can't find factory rifles anymore in this? Well, I think in the early 2000s, Winchester won the short action popularity war. And even the WSM cartridges, really only one of them has been somewhat mainstream, which is the 300. You know, the 270 is, you know, it has a cult-like following, as does the 7 SAUM. Those that shoot it know how amazing it is. But I think the issue comes down to 7mm really wasn't in 20 years ago. You had the 7 mag and the 708. Okay, in America, those were really the only popular ones. There's no 7 PRC, 7 WSM. It never did well either. And then, you know, there wasn't this huge advantage back in the day because, you know, it came with like a 9.5 twist. You know, the heaviest bullets you're going to be shooting are like 160 grain. There's no high BC, so all it had going for it was efficient. That's about it. You know, people are just going to be like, whatever. I'm just going to stick to 7 mag. So I think those were some of the issues with it. All right. The question you might have, is it worth it to get one? I think if you're going to go all out, custom, you love the idea of this really efficient short action cartridge, 100%. Just do it. Okay, get an 8 twist, maybe even a 26-inch barrel, and go to town. You're gonna get basically a 7 PRC light, or an equivalent of a 7 PRC factory ammo. It's pretty sweet, okay? Would I ever get one? Probably not. I have a 7 WSM. I think it's cool. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm just not really into short action cartridges. The Magnum short fat cartridges. It's just not my thing, okay? I understand all the benefits you get, you know, more inherently accurate cartridge, a short action, shorter bolt throw, all of that stuff. Less powder you're using too, over like a traditional Belton Magnum. It's just not my thing, man. And honestly, I'd probably go 6.8 Western before I go 7 SAUM. They're very similar, by the way. Let me know, guys, what you think of the 7 SAUM. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great day.